next up, we have the Leveraging Consumer Insights. Can the whole panel come up? And we have Tiphany Yokas, who is the Director of Consumer Insights from Mondelez, who's going to moderate this session.
Hi. So we've been hearing great stuff around how technology and data can help us target people along the consumer journey, find out exactly when and where we should be talking to them, how to measure it. We're going to take a tiny pivot now and talk a little bit more about something that is much closer to my experience, which is how we can use data in creative and different ways to understand what we should be saying in those moments, how to connect to people in a better way. So it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists. We have Jed Meyer from Annalect, who's going to be sharing a study on millennials and technology, and to introduce Christina Hoff and Kate Narzikul from Johnson & Johnson to explain a little bit about a case study on Tylenol PM. Over to you, Jed, I think. You guys are first? Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. Christina and I are really excited to talk to you about our Tylenol PM relaunch and the insights that kind of led us to our new positioning. Oops. Okay, so when you think about Tylenol PM actually relaunched just a few months ago in October of 2014, so we spent the last year and a half kind of preparing for the launch. When you think about the brand, where it was historically, we were probably the beacon brand in the category, and we had like a 30% market share, which is a pretty strong presence. We also had equity leadership within our category. But unfortunately, we were out of the market for 4 years, and we're looking to come back in a big way. Some of the challenges that we had was the fact that the category changed dramatically when we left. There were new category entrants such as Narzikul and Aleve PM who didn't exist before, and they really redefined the category and sleep for consumers with their new benefits and messaging. So really the opportunity for us was to uncover new insights to inform our relaunch positioning and create an integrated marketing campaign that was relevant to the consumer and differentiated from the competition. So when you think about the sleeplessness segment, it's a pretty big segment in the US. It reaches 70 million people in the country, which is about 30% of the adult population. It's actually bigger than diabetes and heart disease combined, so it's a pretty prevalent struggle for consumers. And we knew a lot about consumer trends, so we knew that stress was a big trigger for consumers who struggled from falling asleep and staying asleep through the night. We knew that personal health, work and home responsibilities, relationships, and even physical pain were also some triggers that consumers had that kept them from falling asleep. And so we knew that it also has a very significant impact on their life, their energy level, their mood, concentration, things like that. So these were kind of some of the fundamental pieces that we knew as we went into our research. We also knew a lot about what was going on in the category at the time. So when you think about the competitive landscape, we call it the sea of sameness. It's a monograph product, which means anyone can really talk about the same benefits, and it's really just what's on the label. So a lot of the brands were using nighttime visuals. They were talking a lot about the functional benefits of having a good night's sleep, so really just falling asleep, staying asleep, and waking up refreshed. And so I'm going to turn it over to Christina, who's really going to talk to you about how we took what we already knew and built on it with additional research to create our launch positioning in the marketplace.
So when Kate and team came to me with the challenge of rebuilding the foundation to relaunch this brand, I didn't want to take a traditional approach that we had in the past and really started thinking about how do we combine art and science to really uncover the truths about sleeplessness. So first, I reached out to our friends at GfK, and they proposed an online immersive consumer blog, which allowed us to connect with our consumers differently over a longer period of time than doing a traditional focus group. What it was is a blogger where they were able to answer our questions, perform different exercises, and also connect with the community of sleep sufferers that we identified. And it gave us an opportunity to go a little bit deeper with those consumers in a less intrusive way. Now, of course, we could ask all the questions we want, and they will give us answers, but it doesn't mean that we're really uncovering anything significantly new. So what we wanted to do is layer on a little bit more of the science and reached out to our friends at Disruptics, who are experts in decision heuristics. And for those who don't know what heuristics are, they're the mental subconscious drivers of when people go to shelf and pick a brand or pick a product. And then when they're home, it's those subconscious drivers that cause somebody to treat with that product that they've purchased. And what we really wanted to use this research was to understand, looking at the competitive landscape and all of the activity that was in the marketplace, what was really feeding and fighting into those key heuristics of the category? And then in return, how can we optimize our communications to make sure that we're putting out a message that's really relevant to consumers? So there was 3 key insights that really came out of this research I'm going to share with you, and then we'll share our final advertising. Number 1 was, it was very clear after listening to consumers that sleeplessness was not just a nighttime issue. And you may say, well, of course, I wake up in the morning and I reach for my cup of coffee, so I must be tired. But what was really the aha for us was that consumers were not judging that good night's sleep on how they slept, but how they felt throughout the entire day. Functionally, how were they able to connect with their friends and family? And when we asked them in the GFK study, tell us about sleep, and they said, it affects me all day. It's not just the morning, but even at 6 o'clock, I'm still dragging, I'm cranky. I snapped at somebody at work and I don't know why, and then they think back to that, crappy night's sleep that they had. So that really gives a kind of a foundation of, we can't just solely focus on the sleep. So then with Disruptics, what they also uncovered for us were that consumers were deciding whether or not to treat not just in that nighttime occasion, but actually throughout the day. So from a pre-sleep, sleep, and post-sleep, they said you can really expand that communication. As Kate shared with you from a competitive landscape, everyone was focused in that sleep. Some kind of went into post-sleep, but pre-sleep was an area that nobody was really touching on. And this is something a time when somebody comes home from work, might start their nighttime routine to wind down. Nobody in the category was really talking to anybody at this time. So the second big insight, kind of building on that sleeplessness is not just a nighttime issue, was that's essential for all aspects of life. And what we heard from consumers as they talked about their experience was that they weren't their true self when they did not get a good night's sleep. And there was 3 big buckets that all of the learnings were kind of falling into: a mental, a physical, or an emotional impact that they were having on their lives. So we kind of flipped the story and said, well, when you do get a good night's sleep, how do you feel? And mentally, they would describe themselves as, I'm alert, I'm productive. It was avoiding stress and anxiety, one of the key drivers. Physically, they had more energy. They were free of aches and pains. And emotionally, this was kind of a newer territory for us. They said, I'm the real me when I sleep. I have a better positive attitude with other people. My interactions are more positive. And nobody in the category was really talking in this space. So then we kind of learned that consumers know what the benefits of sleep are. They can articulate it very well, but they're not necessarily translating those to their behaviors. They're not necessarily taking the right steps to get a good night's sleep. So then we turned to the Disruptics research to better understand, well, why are they not? And some of the key heuristics here, while they're trying to gain a benefit of sleep, they want it naturally, and they don't want to give anything up. So one of the big kind of deterrents from treating in the category is around this belief bias that sleep is natural. People who suffer from sleeplessness sometimes feel isolated because they say, my friends and family can sleep without a problem. I don't understand why I need medication. And it goes back to this belief that it's a natural thing that all humans do. Why can't I do it? So they may not treat. And then compromising, when consumers are in the right mind of treating, they want everything. It's this idea of I want it all and I don't want to give it all up. I want to sleep well, I want to wake refreshed. I don't want to take medication, but if it is medication, I want it to be natural without side effects. So there's a lot of different dynamics that we had to manage or be aware of in the category. The third was kind of taking it back to our brand. And what we learned by asking consumers about the different brands in the category is that Tylenol PM is really the only one that can deliver this functional and emotional benefit. When we asked about Narzikul, our main competitor, a lot of the words associated with Narzikul were very functional based. But Tylenol PM, words like reliable, dependable, and trusted started popping. So when we think about back to the mental and physical, anyone in the category can really play in this space. But the emotional piece, and what was equally as important, they'll fix that for us. It's something that only Tylenol can really do, that trifecta of mental, physical, and relational. I think they're taking us there, let's see. It's all the build up to the big reveal. So all those learnings together, what we had identified is, it's important to go beyond sleep. It's really important to focus on mental, physical, and relational, and only Tylenol PM, based on the competitive space and our consumers, are giving us permission to go there. So Tylenol PM's campaign, Better Night, Better You All Day, really took the brand beyond nighttime suffering and brought to life the impact sleep has on sufferers throughout the day. So we're gonna share with you our right message with the right tone at the right time, first with our TV spots. If we could play video 1.
When you don't get enough sleep and your body aches, you're not yourself. Tylenol PM relieves pain and helps you fall fast asleep and stay asleep. We give you a better night. You're a better you all day. Tylenol.
And those were examples that consumers played back in qualitative, mistakes that they were making, and the tonality was really important in this category. It wasn't just the message, but they wanted a more lighthearted, approachable feel. They didn't want to necessarily see the scary effects of sleep. So we kind of took that lighthearted feel to our social campaign. If we could play video 2.
Let's just say I've eaten things that weren't supposed to be eaten.
Oh. No one's gonna see this, right?
I called my son Brad Chad.
Poured egg whites in my wife's coffee.
I tried to capitalize a 5.
I yawned in the middle of my son telling me that his friends thought he was boring.
So that's our social campaign and ability to kind of bring together the sleep sufferers and create that community with a lighthearted feel. So overall, we're celebrating a lot of success since over the past 6 months since we've relaunched. Our copy exceeded action standards. Our media target plan is now structured to both day and nighttime day parts with the right message at the right time. Media is driving a 30% lift. We're seeing halo across the total Tylenol franchise, and our social activation has outperformed industry benchmarks. And of course, what we love to talk about, Tylenol PM is the #1 equity, and since we've relaunched, have regained the number 3 share in the category. Thank you.
I approach the clicker with quite trepidation. Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see the turnout. I think for some of you, this might be the first session of the day, right? So welcome to those who weren't here at 9 and whatnot. My name's Jed Meyer. I'm the Global Research Director for Annalect, and I'm here today to talk to you about millennials and their use of technology. And before you do the eye roll of a millennial presentation, which is the reaction I get from many people when I talk about our millennial research, I just want to share that the reason we picked this topic was it was by far and away the most requested topic from our stakeholders, our clients, our internal account directors, management, was, tell us more and tell us something new about millennials. So that's what I hope to share with you today. We had done some primary research on this about 3 years ago, and we focused on shopping and how millennials were shopping, and we actually segmented millennials into 3 different age buckets because they behave very differently depending on their age. And this topic, this year, we decided to take a different approach, which was, let's look at their use of technology, because really technology is the defining sort of way that millennials define their lives, because it's sort of like the air around them. It's everything about this cohort. And it's not unique to this cohort. Older cohorts, Generation X and Boomers also, of course, embrace technology, but this is a generation that has known nothing but technology empowerment. So for our definition, it's people born between 1981 and 1995. There's over 80 million millennials in the United States. It's a very multicultural category. And the interesting thing, aside from the technology piece, is that they're also sort of like the chief technology officer of their home. Everyone in the home goes to them for advice about what devices to buy and what apps to use and how to use the technology. So it really is a transformational cohort from that point of view, and this is what we heard, from people. Again, it's sort of like the air around them. They can't imagine a life without technology. You see stats, which are, of course, a given in terms of social profiles and how they use the internet. It's just everything about what they do. So in terms of what we were trying to understand, we really wanted to understand how they conceptualize technology and how they define technology in terms of the role it played within their life. And then also in terms of the content that millennials engaged with. There's a lot of discussion about what levels of content and whether millennials will pay for content, and is it just UGC that they want. So we really wanted to dig down and understand that in terms of how that affected the content that they looked at. And finally, how does it impact their relationship with brands? Obviously, as an advertising agency, we felt that was really important to understand and dig into how that changed relationships with brands, so we could share with our clients some key learnings around that. Oh, look at that. That was one click. If you could cue slide 3, that would be terrific. Wow. And okay, we're starting over? One click. All right. So how do we do it? I'm a research director. I'm not going to bore you with research except to say, or the how we got there. It's really, we took a different approach, which was, number one, we did the qualitative information with 33 people that we studied for a 6-month longitudinal period. And we interacted with those people in a bunch of new and different ways to us. So in addition to the normal interviews that we did focus groups, of course. We did Google Hangouts. We did Instagram exercises and Pinterest exercises. And the idea was we wanted to really speak to them in their language and with their technology. And the information we got from those folks helped define the quantitative piece, which we did with a much larger sample, over 3,000 people, representative of the US. And for the quant piece, we surveyed those folks through their mobile device. So that was new for us in terms of how the methodology that we used. We, again, wanted to speak in the technology and in the language that they were used to. We learned a lot of limitations, and those of you in the audience, I'm sure, who do what we do, understand that when you're dealing with a smaller device and smaller real estate, it really limits sort of what you can ask and how you can ask it. So we learned a lot of key learnings from just a methodology and a research perspective. 4 key findings that we wanted to share with you today. Number one was this idea that technology really democratized society. And this is something that, millennials told us that they felt it really leveled the playing field, and the way they engage with other people was really boundaryless, right? Everybody has the same access to technology, whether it's from a geographic basis or just different levels of socioeconomic levels, that everybody can communicate with each other on a real level playing field. This was surprising to us. We didn't think this would be sort of one of the key first key takeaways, but it really resonated with the folks that we spoke with. Number 2 is that they really use technology to leverage and enhance their media choices. This is a generation and a cohort that really likes user-generated content, but they don't see user-generated content as a replacement for professional content. It's really used to augment it, and so they can, whether it's to learn more or to engage more with the content, they really look at it as an extension. Number 3, brand name alone really doesn't suffice for this generation. It really, to them, technology is as important as the brand name, and that's a really important lesson, that no matter how powerful your brand name is, you really have to speak with them and engage with this cohort in the technology space. And finally, we looked at how they use technology in terms of the purchase funnel and whatnot. And interestingly, their world really is the smartphone in terms of how they engage. But surprisingly, when it came to actually finalize a purchase, they were much more often likely to use the desktop computer than they were the smartphone, which again was surprising to us. Just a couple things I wanted to share in terms of some engagement points. Number 1 is really Millennials Lived through apps. And this, again, isn't a surprise, but in a technology conference, they really shy away from the mobile web, and they really like apps in terms of how it empowers them, how they can use it to improve their lives and get things done. And that came through very loud and clear in the research. In terms of content, I mentioned this earlier, that they really like user-generated content, and you see that, most often they'll access, 55% say they access the user-generated content on the smartphone. But again, it doesn't mean that they're not using professional content and whatnot, and they're also indicated to us that they're happy to pay for content at certain levels. Of course, the number one brand that came through and that sort of thing was Netflix, but they indicated a willingness to pay for content if it served what they were looking for. That, again, was one click. Can you reboot the slides, please? Oh, look at that, right there where we left off. If you could advance one slide, that'd be terrific. So next up, just in the interest of time, was I mentioned that technology is as important as the brand, and so you see 52% told us that the technology that a brand uses is as important as the brand name. This really has profound implications because so much of their life involves technology, and so they understand when a brand doesn't speak to them or engage with them with proper technology, they react negatively. So these were some of the brands that came through that they mentioned to us really worked, and it's everything from how the app worked to the way the brand uses the social media, the deals that they may exchange with them, uses up-to-date technology. This is a response you'd expect around an Apple or a Google or whatnot, but Whole Foods and Victoria's Secret and and Target, Target's been through a lot in the past 18 months. It's interesting to me that a number of brands came through in terms of the way millennials engage with them, and they're calling out of those brands unaided that they enjoyed interacting with them at that level. So that's our study. We're going to go on to Q&A and look forward to engaging with you there.
Great. So thanks so much, both of you, for that. That was really, really interesting. I think I'll kick us off with one question and then see if there's any questions from the audience. But one of the big things that we've been talking about and the benefit of technology is being able to passively measure and sort of passively kind of get a sense of what's going on. And what you guys shared wasn't necessarily passive, but I might characterize it as slightly more authentic or less invasive. And I'm just wondering whether or not I think it's a great thing for consumer insights to start thinking about how to use that in a way to do that, and whether or not doing it that way makes you learn anything better, deeper, more true than the traditional methods that we had before. And it's kind of relevant to both of you, so I don't know who wants to kick off.
I'll start that one. I mean, from our point of view, we're really always looking for the newer approaches to research, whether it's biometric research that we've worked with and other things. For this case, we really wanted to speak to millennials in the technology that they use, so that's why we use things like the Pinterest exercises and the Google Hangouts, because we thought it'd be more authentic to them and we'd get past the sort of standard approaches, and we found it very effective. As I mentioned, it's limiting if you're trying to do survey work and engage with people on smartphones, just because the real estate and the time is not there, but we learned a lot during that process.
If this attention span has gone from 12 seconds to 8 seconds, then I think it's probably a good thing anyway.
And with our study with GfK, we didn't know how much consumers would necessarily open up to us over our blog, and it was amazing how much information they were willing to share. I think what was really critical for us was really getting them in the moment. So in the morning, they would get up and log on, and if they didn't have a good night's sleep, you're really not just hearing the words, but you're seeing the effects. I mean, visually, the drain on their face, you could see the impact that sleep had on them. So I think it just also allowed us to capture those real authentic moments with the consumer.
Great. Another question, which was kind of triggered by what you just said about brands being less persuasive than technology. Slightly, yeah. Because I think that's another thing about how do we use this information in order to sort of create a very rich experience that builds the brand. So was there anything because I think one of the things that sometimes we talk about is like there's like the sexy shiny new toy and we go all running off towards that technology. Was there anything that you learned about sort of how to use the technology in order to connect with the brand in a better way?
Yeah, I think that was the surprising thing, is that no matter what the category is, millennials told us it's important for the technology is important. Again, you'd think it would be a case for a technology brand or whatnot. We have a lot of entertainment brands within Omnicom, a lot of retail brands, and it came across categories that millennials really are interested in engaging, providing feedback, getting offers, all those things, developing a community, and it really cut across brands. So we share those, and in our, as we've been rolling out the study to our clients, we've definitely been discussing that and the specific implications for them. But it's more than just the technology, guys.
Are there any questions from the audience before I manipulate all the time?
The other comment you mentioned that I wanted to talk about was this came up at breakfast this morning with one of the 10 other people that was at breakfast at 8:30, which was the idea of multitasking. You alluded to the shorter attention span, and just the fact that people really, you can't multitask as much as you think you can, and that was one of the reasons, again, we wanted to use the mobile as the device for data collection, because it's, I got to Omnicom about 3 years ago, and we used to joke that the mobile was an extension of your body back then. It's 3 years ago, and think about how much has, time has elapsed and advances in the smartphone technology, and so it really is so much of people's lives. The thing I would say is it's not just about millennials. This was a millennial study, but I think you can find implications here for Generation X and baby boomers as well. And one of the outgrowths of this study was our next study will be about baby boomers, and that's been on our sort of research list for several years. And it's one of those things people want to know about. They have disposable income, but it's like now we have to look at that because you can't just be all millennial all the time.
Well, and then one final question for you guys, because you showed some of the TV ads that you did, but I think the sort of the 3 levels of engagement in terms of emotional, physical, and mental, I think you sort of used that in order to then connect at a more of a journey perspective. So it wasn't, just the TV, but kind of how you kind of piece together a journey in order to sort of support those different levels. And I was wondering if you'd share a little bit more about that.
Sure. What we found was just talking about one wasn't enough for consumers, and every sleep occasion had a different impact. Sometimes it was mental, physical, or relational. So I think showing the consumers kind of the benefit that sleep would have in each of those avenues kind of brought to life. And what the blogs helped us do was use the right examples and show it in the right way, in the right tone, and kind of poke fun a little bit, because that's what consumers wanted. They wanted to make it a lighter experience, and I think it just made it more approachable for the brand.
And in terms of the brand learning on the fact that it was reliable and effective, were there other things that you did kind of to support that element of it beyond the communication of the benefits to the consumer, like in terms of at the point of purchase, or how do you kind of extend it beyond that?
I think the one thing that we found kind of diving deeper, so why we were getting some of those associations, we have some doctor recommendation claims that are linked to the brand that kind of lives into the equity of the brand. So what we found is that by putting that at point of sale, another heuristic that came up is people are looking for that authoritative voice when they're in the moment of deciding whether or not to purchase and treat. So leveraging the right claims at the right place, where Doc Reco isn't necessarily in any other communication, but at shelf it has certain impact for the consumer.
If there's no further questions, I think thank you very much. It was really interesting, and thank you.